Hello, very good afternoon to one and all.
Good
Good
afternoon, sir.
afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Good afternoon. Okay, in previous classes we have been discussed that various components of railway track. In this session also we are going to discuss about the same thing. What is railway track and what are the different components of railway track? We are going to continue the same topic, and if we know that in already we have been discussed that a railway track contain especially three major components. There may be first one is the ballast,
Sir,
next one
your
is the
voice is going, sir.
what?
రీసౌండ్ వస్తుంది సార్ మీ వాయిస్.
Resound వస్తుందా? Okay, well, now also it is giving resound.
ఎస్ సార్ రీసౌండ్ వస్తుంది ఇప్పుడు కూడా.
మాకు మంచిగానే వస్తుంది సార్.
అరే okay, let me try once. Gonna. So actually basically coming to the components of railway track, we know that there are three major components of railway track are there. First one is ballast, next one is sleepers, and next one is rails. And we are in previous sessions we have been discussed about sleepers and rails. Okay, and about ballast we are going to discuss today. And coming to the sleepers, sleeper, the main role of sleepers in a railway track is to bear the load from the rails and to transfer that load to the ballast. That is the role of sleeper in the railway track. And mostly the sleepers are made up of different kind of materials, and most of the nowadays in most of the countries they are using only pre-stressed concrete sleepers. Beyond that pre-stressed concrete sleepers there are so many types of sleepers are there. Like if the sleepers are made up with the steel, they are called as steel sleepers, and if the sleepers are made up with iron, they are called as iron sleepers or cast iron sleepers, and if the sleepers are made up with wood, they are called as timber sleepers. And under remaining are there concrete sleepers like RCC sleepers and pre-stressed concrete sleepers. So these are the five types of sleepers. And coming to wooden sleepers, they may have some disadvantages like they may have high, it means a huge amount of compressive strength and huge strength in flexure they may have, but they are organic in nature. It means they may be attacked by some kind of insects, and whenever the snow or rainfall may takes place, they may get damaged. That is the disadvantage of wooden sleepers. But mostly they are the highly advantages in the sense of strength and in the sense of durability. Understand? No? And next coming to steel and iron sleepers, they are metallic sleepers, and due to atmospheric changes they can easily get corroded and rusted. And also due to heavy loads, the metallic sleepers may get some, it means they may get buckling means they may get cracks due to compression loads. Understand or no? So, and coming to the RCC and pre-stressed concrete sleeps, these sleepers may not undergo any buckling, or these sleepers may not undergo any corrosion, or these sleepers may not undergo any, it means any, it means they are not organic in nature. It means they not, it means they are not supposed to eaten by insects or anything. Understand or no? So because of these such advantages, and the concrete sleepers also somewhat high, it means they may have high compressive strength, and also due to inserting steel tendons or steel rods, they may, it means they are also highly strong in tensile stresses. Understand? So concrete sleepers are having more advantages. And in our country mostly everywhere they are using pre-stressed concrete sleepers, because before inserting tendons or steel tendons within concrete, they are, because initially they have been stressed. So that's why, even though it means a huge amount of stresses, huge amount of loads may be acted upon them, but they may not undergo that much of stress, and they may not undergo that much of failure. So that is the advantage of pre-stressed concrete sleepers. Understand or no? And this is about sleepers. And coming to rails, we have been discussed already. And it means there are, based upon the section, rails have been classified into three types: double-headed rails, and next one is the bull-headed rails, and next one is the flat-footed rails, and And the double-headed rails may have some disadvantages. Bull-headed rails also may have some disadvantages. And to overcome the disadvantages caused due to or failures due to double-headed and bull-headed rails, the flat-footed rails have been designed. And coming to section of the flat-footed rails, the thickness of the thickness of head of flat-footed rail is somewhat bigger than the thickness of foot. And coming to width of the head and foot, the width of head is somewhat smaller than the width of foot. So that's why it is called as flat-footed rail. And these are advantages in the sense of fitting and also in the sense of bearing loads and stresses. The flat-footed rails are more advantageous. So that's why nowadays everywhere they are using flat-footed rails only. And in this session especially, we are going to see three topics. First one is ballast. It means what is the role of ballast in railway track, and what are the different materials which are to be used as ballast. And the next topic we are going to see is what are the various fittings used in railway track. It means if fittings means we need to connect rails with sleepers. Understand now how we will connect rails with sleepers? It means by using some means or by using some apparatus we will fix, like by using fastenings or by using bolts, and also by using some small channel sections or angle sections, or by using some small plates we will fit. Understand? And also in rails also we need to these equipment or these apparatus to fix or to connect two rails. Understand? And also to fix the rails with sleepers we need the same equipment. Understand? So in this session we are going to see only two topics. First one is ballast and next one is the various fitting apparatus used in railway track. Okay, now let me start. And yesterday's session, we have also discussed about the sleeper density. This is the most important topic in the design of railway track, sleeper density. Sleeper density is nothing but the number of sleepers to be placed for a unit length of rail. That is the important one. And one more thing, the sleeper density along with sleeper spacing is also most important thing. Yesterday somebody have been asked a doubt that what is sleeper spacing. It means I told you that it means the horizontal distance between the two successive sleepers within a railway track is called as sleeper spacing. But somebody is asking that it should be taken as center to center distance. Yeah, that is the right one. The center to center distance between two sleepers within a railway track is called as sleeper spacing. That is right question, and also that is right. Okay, now coning off will we have been discussed yesterday. Ballast. Okay, now so ballast is a layer of coarse aggregate which is used in a railway track. It means it is a layer of broken stones or gravel or any other such gritty material laid and packed below and grounds and around sleepers. The material used as an elastic cushion between sleeper and the top of the formation is called as ballast. It means the material, it means the ballast within a railway track can provide some quantity of elastic cohesion between the sleeper and the bottom of the formation. Bottom of the formation means earth, or the earth which is under the railway track, you may also call it as embankment. Understand? And so the ballast may provide some elastic cohesion between sleeper and formation. And one more thing we should know that here the main role of ballast within a railway track is to transfer the load of trains from sleepers to the earth. And one more thing it will do is it will transfer the entire load of the train or the entire moving load of the train to the earth to over a large area. Understand or no? So that is the main role of ballast. And the requirements of good ballast we have seen yesterday. It means it should contain, it should resist crushing and dynamic loads. It should be sufficient deep enough, and also it should distribute the entire load to the earth, and also it should not make the track dusty due to powder formation and the dynamic loads, and also it should be reasonably elastic. It should have resistance to abrasion and weathering. It should be non-porous to provide durability to the ballast. It should hold the sleepers laterally and longitudinally under all conditions of traffic, especially on the curves, and also it should be able to facilitate easy drainage to rainwater. So these are all the various requirements for a good ballast. It means it should provide easy drainage, it should be strong enough, it should be compacted properly, and also it should bear entire loads, and it should be able to transfer the loads from sleepers to the ground with an edge, and also it should be able to transfer the loads to a larger area upon the ground. Understand? So these are the best requirements or best qualities of a ground ballast, good ballast. And the next one is the functions of ballast. As we know that the ballast can give support to the sleepers and rails. The ballast can transfer loads from sleepers to the ground, and also the ballast should withstand various shocks and vibrations created by the heavy loads of trains, and also it provides some extent and elastic bed for the track. Understand or no? It means it will give some extra elasticity to the track, and it transmits and distributes the moving load of the trains from sleepers to the formation, and it protects the formation. It means the formation means the earth surface from direct exposure to sun, rain and frost, and it provides a proper drainage to the track, and also it keeps the sleepers in dry condition, and also it obstructs the various, it means the growth of various vegetations or plants or some grass within the railway track, and it provides proper super elevation in case of curves. It means in that way we need to provide ballast. Understand? It means, and the next one is it provides an easy means for correcting unevenness of the track, and it provides the lateral and longitudinal stability to the track. It protects sleepers from the capillary moisture of formation, and it provides a media for absorption of all impacts caused by rolling stock. So this is the important one. It provides a media for absorption. It means it can absorb the every loads and every vibrations created by the moving load. It means moving load means here the load of train. Understand or no? And types of ballast, as we have been discussed yesterday, based upon the material which we are using as a ballast, it means that will be the type of the ballast, and keeping in use the availability, workability, durability and strength of the ballast. Different materials have been used as a ballast. The most important types of ballast materials are broken stones, gravels, sand, muram, ash or cinder, and another one is the bricks, concur, and ballast earth. Ballast earth is nothing but the earth which is highly strong. Understand? So that is called as highly strong enough, and it can be directly used as a ballast without providing any concur or without providing any core segregate. That is called as ballast earth. Understand? It means we can define ballast is a layer of broken stones, gravel, muram or any other granular material placed and packed below 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 the sleepers and around the sleepers for distributing load from the sleepers to the earth or from the sleepers to the formation. So like this we can define a ballast. Understand? It means ballast, again I will give definition. Ballast may be defined as a layer of broken stones or gravel or muram or any other granular material placed and packed below the sleepers and around the sleepers within a railway track to distribute loads from sleepers to the earth. Understand or no? So that is the, like that we can define ballast, and the ballast can provide drainage. Already we have discussed, it can provide drainage, and also it can provide some sufficient stiffness and strength to the sleepers and also to the railway track. Understand? No? Okay, this is a coming to broken stone. The broken stone is nothing but the stones which have been broken up. It can be used as a broken stone. Mostly coarse aggregate called as a broken stone, and mostly the granite, quartzite, hard stones, limestones are the best examples which are used as a ballast. Understand? No? It means due to high interlocking action, it holds the track to the correct alignment and gradient. It means the broken stone may not. It means the shape of the broken stones may not be even. It means they are. It means they may have only indefinite shape. They are not. They do not have any definite shape. Like they may not be in any cubical shape or circular shape or cylindrical shape. All they are in indefinite shape. It means in whatever the shape they want, in that shape they will be. Understand? And so like, so that's why due to their irregular shape they can give, it means they can better provide interlocking action. It means they can hold, it means they can hold, it means themselves they can hold other broken stones themselves, like due to compaction. If we compact, like it means if we compact such a irregular shaped broken stone, irregular shaped course create na, they can hold themselves and they can provide it means the bonding, it means the surface bonding between the adjacent adjacent broken stones or adjacent aggregates will be too much high. Understand? Na? So that is nothing but high interlocking bonding. It means due to high interlocking action, it holds the track to the correct alignment and gradient. One more thing is required, that to provide a proper alignment, we should the proper compaction of the ballast is necessary, and also to provide a proper gradient, and also to provide a proper gauge distance also, the proper compaction of ballast is necessary. Understand or no? And one more thing is that granite, quartzite and hard stones, limestones are the best examples of broken stones which are to be used as ballast. Next one is the gravel. Gravel, we know what is gravel. Gravel, it is a type of soil. It means it is a type of portionless soil and whose particle size is somewhat bigger than the stones, sorry, bigger than the sand particles. It means the gravel are the particles whose size is above 6 mm, mostly above 5 to 6 mm are considered as gravel particles. And this gravel is obtained from riverbeds or pits, and the gravel is cheaper than broken stone. The gravel has excellent drainage property, and the gravel requires screening before its use. And ashes and cinder, this is one of the important material which is using as a ballast, and which is important in the sense what we should know. And it means we all know what is ash. Ash is the waste product coming out from coal burning industries. It means the industries are the plants in which coal is burning. It means due to the burning of coal, some waste products may be produced. So that waste product is called as ash. Understand? No? It means from the thermal power plants or from the locomotives, railway locomotives, the coal will be burned now. So the wastage coming out from power plants is called as ash, and the wastage coming out from locomotives, it means some engines or even locomotives are also used in trains. Understand? So burning of coal in locomotives, they will produce some other kind of wastage that is called as cinder. Understand? No? So the ashes and cinder having binding property, it means we know cement having binding property. It means especially in concrete we are using cement to bind the coarse aggregate and fine aggregate. Cement having huge amount of binding property. Understand or no? In the same way, ash also contains some amount of binding property like cement. Understand or no? And best example is cement. Like when cement mixes with water, it will become like a paste that is called as cement paste. With the passage of time, after some time, the water within the cement paste will be dried up. So then what will happen? The cement will become strong. It means the cement will become strong enough. It means it will be too much hard, and it will become too much strong substance. Understand or no? Because if we need to measure compressive strength of a cement, we will make a cube with cement. Understand or no? So like that, the cement when mixes with water, it will become too much strong. Understand? In the same way, ashes and cinders also, when they mixes with water, they will become also too much strong, and also it means they get a huge amount of hardness, and they get huge huge amount of compressive strength they may get. Understand? No? So in that sense, whenever the ashes, cinders, or slags mixes with water, they also become hardened and they get some quantity of good strength. Understand? No? So like in that case, the hardened ashes or cinders or slags also sometimes they may be used as coarse aggregate. Understand? No? So in that case, whenever we are using ashes or cinders as a coarse aggregate, as a, in the especially in the case of railways as a ballast, so they can provide good drainage property, and also they can provide some corrosive property. It means they may create some corrosion to steel sleepers, or they may create some corrosion to steel rails. Understand or no? So they have corrosive property and they should not be used where steel sleepers are used. Yes, they are having some corrosive property, no? So they should not be used where sleepers are used. So like that, if whenever ashes, cinders, or slags mixed up with water, with passage of time, they will become strong enough. Understand or no? So in that case, those ashes and cinders also will be used as a ballast material. That's what we should remember. And the next one is the sand. Sand also will be used as a ballast material. Only the disadvantage of sand is a cohesionless soil. Whenever rain will takes place, the sand will get collapsed. Understand? No, it means the sand particles will get separated from one to another. So that is the best disadvantage of sand. And one more thing, we cannot compact sand. It means even if we can compact clay, we can compact gravel, we can compact ash or cement, we can compact even cement particles, but we cannot compact sand, because if we compact sand, there will be no action. Because why we need to compact soil, to decrease the volume of the soil, we will apply some compaction. But if we apply compaction in sand, we cannot decrease its volume, because sand particles are cohesion in the size, they do not have any cohesion in between them. So that's why sand is not a best material for ballast in the in case, and it is also not best material wherever rain takes place. And one more thing, sand is a best material for ballast wherever rainfall will never be there. It means throughout the year, like deserts, there will be no airfall throughout the year. Understand or no? So in those cases, we can use sand as a ballast material. Understand or no? So sand is a ballast material where rainfall never takes place, and sand is, it can provide some good drainage property, and sand will give, it means it gives a silent track. Understand? And it is good for packing of cast iron part sleepers. That's it. And next one is the muram. It is a type of soil. Understand? So it is a type of soil which is formed due to the decomposition of laterite rocks. It means due to decomposition of some organic soils or some organic rocks. mm, the muram will be produced. It is somewhat, it is also organic in nature, and it is red in color. Under heavy loads, it get crumbled and powder, and also it used in sidings and embankment. And most of the cases, muram is not used as a embankment material or a ballast material, and some rare cases it can be used as ballast material, and some rare cases it can be used as embankment. That's it. Next one is the Kankar. We know Kankar, it is available everywhere in India. It means most of the places Kankar is available in India. And Kankar, it is a nodule type uh, particle. Like nodule type particle, a particle which may be irregular shape or which may be regular in shape, but somewhat it is about to make circular. Understand? No? So such particles are called nodule particles. It is a nodule type structure, and it is varying, and also it contains varying sizes. It means a number of sizes it contains, and it is useful for meter gauge and narrow gauge strikes with light traffic. Understand? No? It means wherever the meter gauge and narrow gauge tracks are there, there Kankar will be useful, and wherever broad gauges are there, in those cases the granite, limestone, or hard stone or sandstones will be used as a ballast. Next one is the brick ballast. The bricks also some places they will use as a ballast. Understand? No? It means the overburnt bricks are broken into small pieces and used as ballast, and they are fairly good enough drainage property. It means they can provide good drainage property, and it becomes powder and heavy traffic and heavy loads. Understand or no? And also they can become in the form of dust. So that is the disadvantage of brick ballast, and nowhere brick ballast is used. Where only entire in the entire world only one or two places the brick ballast is using. Nowhere brick ballast is used. Nowhere muram ballast is used. And only the ballast materials are broken stone or concrete. Only these two are the best ballast materials. And nowhere fly ash is used and nowhere cement is used. Only some rare cases wherever such a broken stone or such a broken brick are not available. In those cases only the hardened cement or hardened fly ash or hardened slag may be used as a ballast. And next one is the selected earth. It means the earth which contains huge quantities of bearing capacity. So they are used as a direct ballast without providing any bed of coarse aggregate or any bed of muram. Directly the earth itself will be used as a ballast. Understand or no? So a good quality earth can be used for newly laid tracks and sidings. So next one is the rail gauges. We have been discussed already. Rail gauges. Rail gauge is nothing but the distance between the, it means the cross sectional distance or the horizontal distance between the two rails is within a railway track is called as rail gauge or gauge distance. Understand now? Here first point you can see that rail gauge is the distance between inner sides of the two parallel rails that make up a single railway line. Understand now? It means you can see the first point again. This is the most important definition we should remember. Rail gauge is the distance between the inner sides of two parallel rails. That is nothing but rail gauge, or that is nothing but gauge distance. Understand or no? It means sleeper spacing is nothing but the center to center distance between the two successive sleepers is called as sleeper spacing, and the distance between, it means the distance between the inner sides of the two parallel rails is called as gauge distance. Understand or no? And one more thing, the spacing or the distance between the center to center distance, it means the center to center distance between the two wheels, two wheels of a train is called as gauge, or the distance between the inner sides of two rails is called as gauge. I will explain you later what is gauge. Understand or no? It means for gauge two definitions are there. First one is the center to center distance between the two parallel wheels of a train, that is called as gauge distance, or the distance between the inner sides of two parallel rails, that is also called as gauge distance. Okay na? And one more thing, 60% of the world's railways use as a 4 feet 8.5 inch as a gauge distance. This is the standard gauge or international gauge. In our India we are not using this gauge, because in India we are using broad gauge, meter gauge. Understand? In India we are not using any standard gauge or international gauge. It means this is the what, this value we need to remember. This is the most important value. If you take competitive exams, most of the times this question have been asked either for TSPSC or APPSC or some state competitive exams or some central competitive exams. This is the most important question. Not only this, different sizes of gauges, like what is the size of international gauge or stand gauge, what is the size of cape gauge, what is the size of meter gauge, what is the size of broad gauge, narrow gauge. All these sizes are most important. And if you take even Indian engineering service exam, UPSC exam, every time one question will be come from this gauge distances. And for gate exam, no any single time this question may be asked. Sometimes they may ask. Understand or no? Because if you take gate exam, in gate exam mostly problematic questions they may ask. They may not ask any fill in the blanks, or they may not ask any questions from theory. Only 10% will be theory, and the remaining 90% will be problematic in a gate exam. So for gate exam such type of questions will not come, but for UPSC and state board exams such type of questions may come. Okay na? It means 60% of the world's railways using this international gauge or standard gauge. Its size is 1435 mm, and rail gauges are larger than standard gauge are called as broad gauge. In our India we are using broad gauge. Understand? No? Broad gauge is the world's bigger gauge. Understand? No? And rail gauges smaller than standard are called as narrow gauge. And dual gauge railways has 3 or 4 rails positioned so that trains of 2 different gauges can be used. Understand? And this is the most important one. In a track, in a single track, 2 or more gauges may be provided. If you take in a single track, broad gauge may be there, meter gauge may be there, narrow gauge may be there. Within first broad gauge will be provided. Within it means in between the rails of broad gauge, again 2 more rails will be provided. That is for meter gauge. Understand? And so like that, in some places, 2 kinds of gauges may be provided because under some like at junctions or at heavy traffic areas, like double gauges or multi gauges may be provided. And a place where different gauges meet is called as a break of gauge. This is the most important point we should remember is what is break of gauge. A place where different gauges meet is called as a break of gauge. It means in a railway track, if you consider a railway track, it may be broad gauge. Understand? No? After laying broad gauge for a certain distance, after that they use it to provide meter gauge. It means in a railway track, up to certain distance, broad gauge may be there, and after that, meter gauge may be there. It means the meter gauge track and broad gauge track both will be linked together. Understand? No? So that kind of point, it means such kind of junction or such kind of meeting point of 2 or more gauges upon a railway track is called as break of gauge. A place where different gauges meet is called as a break of gauge. Remember that. And from this figure, you can understand what is gauge. Understand? And rail gauge or rail gauge. In this figure, you can see that the center to center distance between 2 wheels of a train is called as gauge. And coming to rails, it means below the wheels, 2 rails have been shown in red color. You can see that the distance between the inner surfaces of 2 rails is called as gauge distance or rail gauge. You can see clearly, you can see in this picture what is gauge or what is rail gauge. The center to center distance between 2 parallel wheels is maybe gauge, or the distance between inner surfaces of or inner sides of 2 parallel rails may be taken as rail gauge or gauge. And there are 3 types of rail gauges in India we are using. They are meter gauge, broad gauge, and narrow gauge. And other 2 more types of gauges are there. They are international gauge and Cape gauge. International gauge and Cape gauge, these 2 are not using in India. Only in our India we are using these 3 types of gauges. And broad gauge is the broad gauge is the biggest gauge in the world. Understand? Its distance is 1676 mm, and meter gauge, it means the distance between the 2 rails is 1 meter. It will be called as meter gauge. It is 1000 mm. And narrow gauge means there are 2 different types of narrow gauges is there. One is 760 mm and next one is the 610 mm. So these are the 3 types of gauges using in India. So broad gauge, it is the world's biggest gauge, and its size is 1676 mm. It is called as broad gauge. And the broad gauge in our India, it is called as a standard gauge of India. Understand? No? And other countries which are using broad gauge are Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Brazil, Argentina, etc. It means under India. So these 6 countries are these 6 countries only majorly using broad gauge, and the remaining all countries they are using only international gauge. In our India, we are not following international gauge. Okay, now so, and 50% of Indian railways have broad gauge. Not only 50%, more than 50% in our India, broad gauge only there. And broad gauge is suitable wherever funds are there and wherever good revenue is there. Understand? No? So in those cases, broad gauge may be provided, and especially broad gauge is best suitable for carrying passengers. Understand? No? For carrying goods or luggages, broad gauge is not suitable. Only for carrying passengers with safety and comfort, broad gauge is the best choice. Understand? No? So you can see broad gauge is suitable under the following conditions: when sufficient funds are available for the railway project, and when the prospects of revenue are very bright, and this broad gauge is used for tracks in plain areas which are densely populated, that is for routes of maximum traffic intensities and at places which are centers for industry and commerce. Understand? So in those cases, broad gauge is best. It means wherever we need to convey huge number of population or huge number of passengers, in those cases broad gauge is the best choice. And one more thing is that in our India, approximately most of the passengers or most of the people use it to travel for long distances. They use only train transport. No, it means most of the people they do not use air transport. But if you take in some European countries and USA, in those countries or in those countries, only it means only few people only will use rail transport. Most of the people use their own transport, or most of the people use air transport, like they will travel through aeroplane and flights. Okay, in our India, railway is the biggest transport mode. And the next one is the meter gauge. It means if the distance between the inner faces of two parallel rails, it is called as meter gauge, and it is 1000 mm. That's why it is called as meter gauge. And most of the countries which are using meter gauge are France, Switzerland, Argentina, and India. Okay, na? And in India, 40% of the railway tracks are meter gauge. Okay, na? And next, suitability. It is suitable wherever we need to convey huge quantities of goods and huge quantities of luggage we need to convey. In those cases, meter gauge is best choice, best option. And also meter gauge is suitable under the following conditions, like when funds available for the railway project are inadequate, and when the prospects of revenue are not very bright, and this gauge is therefore used for tracks in underdeveloped areas and also in interior areas. Understand? No? It means wherever there are no good funds for railways, in those cases we can use meter gauge. Next one is the narrow gauge. This is the smallest gauge. Its distance is maybe 610 mm or 762 mm, and it is used only under only some rare cases it will be used. Narrow gauge will be used. It means whenever we need to construct bridges or in hilly areas or in forest areas, and we need to use railways during valleys. Understand? No? So in those cases we may use narrow gauge. Understand? And the other countries which are using narrow gauge are Britain, South Africa, etc. And only 10% of Indian railway tracks have been laid with narrow gauge. Suitability, yeah. Narrow gauge is suitable under the following conditions: that when the construction of a track with the wider gauge is prohibited, it means whenever the wider gauge, it means meter gauge or broad gauge is not, it means they are unable to attempt. So in those cases we can use narrow gauge. And also under curves and under gradients and upon bridges and tunnels, narrow gauge is suitable. And when the prospects of revenue are not very bright, and also this gauge is used in hilly and very thinly populated areas. The feeder gauge is commonly used for feeding raw materials to big government manufacturing concerns, as well as to private factories such as steel plants, oil refineries, sugar factories, etc. It means some factories also may some factories or some industries may have their own railway tracks, like to convey raw materials from their resources to industries or to factories. Understand? And in those cases, in those private railway tracks. Understand? And so in those cases also the narrow gauges may be used. Uniformity in gauges. Already I told you, it means a single railway track should not contain two or more gauges. A single railway track should contain only a single gauge. It means throughout the track it should contain broad gauge, or throughout the track it contain meter gauge, or throughout the track it contain narrow gauge. A single railway track should not contain two or more gauges. And one more thing, that the gauge distance should be uniform. It means there even due to some environmental factors or due to some structural problems, the gauge distance should not be altered. So like that we need to plan. Understand? We need to design and we need to align the railway track. Okay, na? one country should have only one gauge throughout its various parts. It is more advantageous. And whenever a single country should not have a single gauge throughout its country, in those cases that country, or in those cases a single track may contain a single gauge throughout its route or throughout its length, understand? And also, and but the policy of India and its topographical, geological and financial conditions have led to adopt various gauges in its various parts. Okay, so based upon topographical features and geological features, and also some frictional problems and also some financial problems, India have been adapted to different gauges at different parts. And one more thing we have been discussed, that break of gauge. What is break of gauge? The break of gauge is nothing but if within a single track, two gauges may be provided, and the meeting point of the two gauges is called as break of gauge. Okay, now. So, okay, this is about advantages of breaking the gauge or break of gauge. The most effective advantage of breaking the gauge is to render the railway an economical and profitable concern. And also, the break of gauge can facilitate the provision of steeper gradient, sharp curves, and narrow tunnels by adapting a less wide gauge in hilly and rocky areas. It means most of the cases, the break of gauge or the breaking of gauge may be held wherever the direction of the route may changes, or wherever the tunnels or wherever the bridges are needed to be provided. So in those cases, the breaking of gauge may be useful or may be provided. Understand now? In those cases, the breaking of gauge may be useful. And coming to disadvantages of breaking of gauge, this is the most important thing we should know. The breaking of gauge can cause much inconvenience to the passengers while changing the train at a station. It means a single train cannot travel with different gauges. Understand? If the train is designed for a broad gauge, it can only travel upon the broad gauge. If the train is designed for a meter gauge, it can only travel upon a meter gauge. Understand? So if the gauges of a track have been changes, the passengers also need to change the train at that particular point. Understand? So it may cause some inconvenience to the passengers, and also it causes delay of movement of people and goods. It means it can cause some delay in the conveying or transport, and it results in wastage of time. It involves extra labor for unloading and reloading the goods. Understand? And also the goods are likely to be damaged or dislocated at the junction station. And also, okay, and it requires the provision of extra and costly transshipments, go down sheds, etc. It means it means it requires some fixed facilities, like it may require some buildings. It means some costly and extra buildings, like for go downs or sheds or parking facilities. Understand now? So all those things it may need. This is also some create some financial issue in the sense of construction and also in the sense of operation and maintenance. It causes some extreme difficulty in quick movement of military and ammunition during war days. Understand now? Because it means if a single gauge is there, military can travel. If a different gauges are there, means they need to change the trend. So in the sense, some wastage of time will be there. Here, military and ammunition is nothing but the material which is using in bullets, or the material which is used to blast bombs or to kill people. That is called as ammunition. Okay, na? Loading gauge. This is the one more important topic we should know. Loading gauge. Loading gauge is an envelope, or it is a frame, or it is a frame which contains some fixed dimensions. It means it contains some fixed size, fixed length, fixed height, fixed thickness, fixed width. Understand? So that is to provide. It means it is a frame, ideal frame, and to that frame we need to design, or to that sizes or to the dimensions we need to design, or we need to manufacture trains. Understand now? So that gauge is called as loading gauge. You can see a loading gauge defines the maximum height and width of railway vehicles under their loads to ensure safe passage through bridges, tunnels and other structures. It means loading gauge, it is a frame or it is a structure which can give some recommendations to us, because at what size or at what dimensions the vehicle, it means the train should be upon a particular way, through a particular way, understand or no? So it means the formation or the framing of guidelines or provisions for designing and for manufacturing a trains, that is nothing but a loading gauge. Understand? A loading gauge defines the maximum height and width of a railway vehicles. Railway vehicle means train. Okay, now width of for railway vehicles and their loads to ensure safe passage through bridges, tunnels, and other structures. The loading gauge determines the sizes of passenger trains and the size of shipping containers that can be conveyed on a section of railway line, and varies across the world and often within a single railway system. Okay, now, and you can see here, a loading gauge is the envelope or contour shape within which all railroads, cars, locomotives, coaches, buses, trucks, and other vehicles must fit. Understand or no? Okay, whenever a route, a railway route or road route may needed to be provided through a tunnel, in that case, all the, it means the size of the tunnel, it should be sufficient for the traveling of vehicles, or the vehicles should be sufficient, it means should be designed in that way that less than the dimensions of the tunnel, understand or no? So like that. So it varies between different countries and may also vary on different lines within a country. For example, metro trains might have smaller loading gauge than conventional trains to allow smaller tunnels, understand or no? So in that case, metro trains may run on conventional tracks, but not vice versa, understand or no? If the loading gauge have been provided for metro trains, na, through them metro trains can pass, and also if the loading gauge is provided for ordinary trains, through them metro trains can pass. But if the if the loading gauge which is provided for metro trains only, na, through that the ordinary trains may not pass, because the dimensions of metro trains and the dimensions of ordinary trains may different. So like that. So like only the dimensions are the recommendations provided for the for manufacturing of trains is called as loading gauge. And the next one is the track fittings and fastenings. This is the important topic we should know. This is the most important one, because the entire selection of materials for railway track, like ballast material, sleeper material, rail material, this is on other hand, and this is the, it means the fittings and fastening of railway track, this is on other hand, understand now? It means the selection and construction of railway track is how much important in the sense of design, it means in the sense of technical aspect, the entire design and construction is another part, and this is on another side, this is that much important, understand now? And mostly the means or the apparatus which are used for the fittings in railway track are fish plates, spikes, bows, chairs, blocks, keys, and plates. So these are all the most commonly used apparatus for fitting sleepers to the rails, and also for fitting or for joining two rails within a track, understand? So these are the common means or common apparatus used for fitting system. It means you can see rail fastening system is a means of fixing rails to sleepers, understand? It means the apparatus which are used for the rail to rail, it means to join two rails or to mix or to fix rails with sleepers, that system is called as a rail fastening system. And the rail fastening system is used to keep rails in proper position, and the important means are fish plates, spikes, bows, chairs, blocks, keys, and plates. Okay, now you can see fish plates are nothing but in this figure you can see fish plates are mostly used to join two rails within a track. You can see in this figure you can see two in every figure two rails are joined with some plates or some section. That section is called as fish plate, and that fish plate join the rails by using some spikes or some balls. So this is about fish plates. Here you can see that fish plate, and always some distance should be there in between the fish plate and rail. In red color one you can see that there is some small spacing is there between the fish plate and the rail, understand? So always that much distance should be provided. It means a minimum of 5 mm should be provided. Why? Because train is a heavy load. Whenever train is moving upon a rail, it can imply or it can impart compressive load on the track on the rail, and also under okay na, and due to that compressive load, it can undergo compression stress, and also in vertical direction the rail undergo compression, and in horizontal direction the rail undergo tension. Understand or no? So in that case, sometimes the rail may be contract or may be widen. Understand or no? So due to that, it means to, so in those cases, it means to overcome that problem due to compression, it means due to contraction or due to expansion of the rail due to compressive load or tensile load, that that much distance have been provided. Understand? If that much distance is not there due to compression or expansion, what will happen? The fish plate will be broken up. Understand or no? So for providing particular space for the contraction or expansion of a track, that much of space we are providing, that is the important aspect we should know. And the requirements of fish plates, fish bowls are there. Understand or no? So about this topic we will discuss in tomorrow class. Understand or no? It means various fitting system or various fitting means used in a railway track. With this, our railway track, it means our topic railway track will be completed. Understand or no? It means railway track contains especially these three components. First one is the rails, next one is sleepers, and next one is the ballast. Along with this, it also having a system that is called as fitting system or fastening system. Understand or no? So it means the complete study of all these things is known as railway track. Okay, na? So and this is the introduction, and this is the various components of railway track we are going. But in our subject, we are having various technical aspects like how to align a railway track, how to design a railway track, how to provide various technical aspects, and how to provide various geometrical aspects like wherever gradient is needed or wherever the rail to be raised, and wherever the rail to be lowered, it means the level of the rail to be decreased. Understand? And in those cases, how to design all those things we will see. Understand? So before entering the subject, we should know what is railway track, what is rail, what is gauge, what is ballast, and what is the fitting system, and what are all the changes may take place within the railway track and within the formation ground. Understand or no? When train is moving, all those things come under introduction. Understand or no? It means we are not entered into the subject. This is everything come in introduction only. Okay now? In if you can see the syllabus will start at alignment of railway line. After that, what are the surveys to be done for a railway project. Understand or no? And after that, various design of various technical aspects will be there. All these things will come under introduction part only. Okay now? And in tomorrow class, we can discuss the various fitting systems and fitting apparatus we will use it for use in a railway track. Understand or no? And with that, our introduction
Sir,
part will
attendance,
be. Yeah, I'm downloading. Wait 2 minutes. Okay, I'm closing the presentation.
okay, sir, we'll close it.
Wait a minute.
Sir, we have to wait or
Wait for 2 minutes. Don't leave. Don't
okay,
wait for
okay.
2 minutes.
I think
You all please mute yourself.
ఏమైందిరా చెప్పు.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, is it done?
Yeah, it is done. Okay, you can leave. Okay,
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much for participating.
Thank you, sir.